I want to give credit here to T-Bone because I was going over this portion with him in preparation, making some notes, and he had a great question. He always has these great questions. He asked, why did the angel tell them to flee to Egypt? We're commanded in Deuteronomy 17:16. And it's talking about the king. Even so, the king must not acquire many horses for himself or return the people to Egypt in order to acquire more horses, since Jehovah has said to you, you must never return that way again. So we have this commandment that applies to the king, but it's a general statement that God has told us, don't go back to Egypt. And then we see in the book of Jeremiah, there are these people who want to go to Egypt after they assassinate Gedaliah, who is the representative of the Babylonian king. They say, okay, now we're in a lot of trouble because we've killed the Babylonian appointed governor. Even though he was a Jew, he was appointed by the Babylonians. So they say, okay, now we need to flee to Egypt. They go to Jeremiah. He says, absolutely don't go back to Egypt. And what do? They take Jeremiah with them as a prisoner, and Jeremiah ends up dying in Egypt. So we have these two different situations. One is in Deuteronomy, where there's a general statement, don't return to Egypt. And in Jeremiah, he reminds them, yeah, don't go to Egypt. We're not supposed to go to Egypt. And here the angel comes and tells them to go to Egypt. So T-Bone asked that question. I blame him. It's a really good question. It's one of those things I read before and I hadn't really thought about it. What's your thought on that, Keith?
I got to say the benefit of T-Bone. The benefit of T-Bone is one, and I love the fact that you're talking to him about it because it gives us now different perspectives, obviously, of this. And the other thing that he's done, which is not a small thing, is he's actually working with the Hebrew. So maybe that slows him down. I don't know.
Wait, so tell the people how that's available.
Well, So one of the things that we're doing now is we're making it available that there's an interlinear. And I think it's a broad brush interlinear, meaning we're taking the tool that we have that has the vowel points there, and we're giving an English word under that Hebrew word. So if you don't know anything about Hebrew, you can at least see the English word. And again, what I think that has done for me, and maybe it's doing that for T-Bone, Nehemia, like you said, you're reading it and you're like, I didn't think about it. You don't have to slow down as much as those of us who haven't had Hebrew to be as what I'd call it is at the tip of our tongue. It's made me to slow down. But maybe that's what's happening. But I want to say something about the to Egypt issue, is that when I saw to Egypt, I again stopped and I started asking the question. And I'll tell you why I'm asking this question. So bear with me just for a minute. Last year, we did something. We had a call to people, what's called readers of the book club. And the goal was for them to read the entire Tanakh in a year. Now, maybe that's something, and I think you would say when you were growing up, how many times would you read through the sections of the Tanakh? Just when you're in the synagogue.
Well, the Torah itself, we read once a year. We went through the Torah, and then, so the rest of the Tanakh, I sat and read it because I wanted to know what was in it. But the average Jew may never read the book of Job or the book of Judges. They might read a section from Job or a section from Judges, but to read it from cover to cover, I would say 99% of Jews have never even couldn't tell you where Job is in the Tanakh. Okay,
now here's what's interesting. So now I've gone on this process, Nehemia, where I've read through the Bible. I used to have a little program called the 1 year Bible, where you'd read through the entire Old Testament, New Testament. That's the way I understood it then. So we did this exercise. This is going to relate to this. The exercise was to take a full year and read the entire Tanakh. And so people went through it. And there were many people that would say, I never really knew about X. I never really thought about X. This is tying into what we're going to end up talking about in a couple verses. But when I saw flee to Egypt, immediately I start thinking about who was ever sent to Egypt. And I think about Abraham going to Egypt. Right. And I think about Isaac or Abraham.
Isaac, but Abraham and then Jacob.
Yeah, but then Jacob. And then the next thing that hits me is I think about Joseph getting this command to go to Egypt. And I think, I know of another Joseph that went to Egypt. But again, if I start just in Matthew, I don't get a chance to kind of have that background, and it illuminates the situation. I guess that's my point. So, I mean, Egypt being kind of a place that was used, obviously, when we think of Egypt and who came out of Egypt and the importance of the significance of Egypt, man, I mean, the Egypt issue jumps off the page, I guess is my point.
Right. Well, I love T-Bone's question,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it has to be one of those things where it remains a question.
Mm-hmm.
If you believe that an angel actually appeared to him and said these things, then it's not that big of a question, right? In other words, God could, we talked about this when with the virgin birth story.
Mm-hmm.
Can God violate his own law? And the answer is yeah, he does all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He establishes this is the principles for us,
Mm-hmm.
but then he can, he may say, like for example, in the tabernacle, we're told not to have any images before God, and then the tabernacle tells us to make 2 cherubs, right? So what's going on? I thought God can't violate his own law. Well, yeah. I mean, if he tells us to do something specifically, we do it. Or he tells Moses to take the rod, and on the rod to put the serpent. Well, we're not supposed to make any graven images. Moses could have said to him, maybe should have said to him, but Yehovah, you told me in the 10 Commandments, all 600,000 Israelites heard it. Don't make any graven images.
Yeah.
Instead, Moses is obedient to God. So if you believe God is speaking to Joseph, it's a question, but it's not really a question.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love it.